Hi everyone, my name is Charlie and today I want to talk about nerves. I'm hoping to actually get to talking about it this time, since I already recorded half of this video once, was 4 minutes in and hadn't even mentioned what I wanted to talk about. So far this morning I have seen magpies, paperboys and a car I didn't realise was there, and that surmised what I talked about in those 4 minutes. The nerves I want to talk about aren't the nerves that you would commonly associate with just going outside or just general nervousness. I am naturally quite the nervous, shy, retiring person. I know you can't believe it. I can't either, but it's true. And so the nerves I'm talking about aren't like the nerves that I got from leaving the house when I was younger. These are more nerves associated with sharing my work with people, stage fright, that sort of stuff. And so I've never actually got that nervous about performing. I don't know why. I don't really tend to reach this point, apart from when it was like school drama exam type things. I wouldn't get nervous. I'm quite glad about that. I'd get this tiny bit of nerves right at the last minute, but it would soon dissipate. And that still almost happens. I think it's one of the reasons I write comedy is because, well, I say I write comedy. I'm currently writing comedy. I quite like the audience participation in that, because once you get a laugh, it's kind of that thing of you set up to go now, you're doing okay, this audience, and you're getting on. But another reason I'm doing this video is because I sent my 2 books to Dave over at Wild Reads, and I'm very grateful for him for showing them. I feel like all we do is talk about each other right now. And he showed them in a video, so I'll do that as well. I've got Our Doris. This is probably the scrappiest version of this book you'll ever see, because I've been reading out of it for nearly 3 years now. And then we have Indisputably Doris, which I brought out at the end of August last year, and this is not my copy. I don't know where my copy is, but I just found this at home. And so a lot of people didn't know about them, and a lot of you, morning Mr Magpie, and a lot of you were surprised to find out I was a writer, and I thought, well, clearly I'm going to have to tell you about them. So Our Doris and Indisputably Doris follow an older female protagonist, Mrs Doris Copeland. She is a member of a WI, I call her an atomic housewife, like Hyacinth Bucket with a tendency to throw table lamps is how I originally described her. And it's told from this point of view of her long-standing husband, Arold. And it's very much inspired by my love of Alan Bennett's Talking Heads and Victoria Ward and my comedy heroes, really. And I've been performing with Our Doris. I say performing, that's not right, but I've been reading about this character of Doris since 2012 officially, and the book came out in 2015. And whenever I've done events, I've been a bit confident, because I've been very sure of the characters and very sure of the way I was reading, what I was reading. I was choosing the bits that would make sense without having to confuse anyone listening. And I, admittedly, the first book, I have said since I brought it out that with the second book I wanted to change it a bit, because when people were listening they were missing parts of it, because it was just kind of joke on joke on joke, and there was never like this weight between the punchline. I was trying to make it as funny as possible. I mean, there's every chance that these people were just trying to humour me, and the book's terrible. I don't know. But then, so I changed that with the second book. And in September, my events for Doris started, the second Doris started. And as has been documented, my events weren't as well attended as they had been previously. When I first brought out the first Doris book, I sold out the copies that I'd purchased on the first day of bringing it out, so I had to hurriedly order some more, and that was, sorry, I just realised my collar's not straight, and that was 50 copies gone. And that's not a lot, I know, but for me, that was quite a lot. And admittedly, they were sold to my fellow writers on the first day at the launch, and then the second day was at a library event. But I'd always had well-attended events getting between 10 and 40 people. The 40, I will admit and say that was more to do when I did author panels with fellow authors. But that's how it went down. And so I was extremely excited to bring out the second book because people had been asking for it. And, I get stopped in the streets. I'm talking about, like, getting stopped in the streets in, like, Poynton and Macclesfield where people know me. I don't mean, like, I'm just walking generally about my day in some far-off land and people are there like, oh, I read you. No, it's just, like, because it's a very kind of close-knit community in Poynton and Macclesfield, so they kind of, if they've come to one of my events, which there have been quite a few, they'll stop me and tell me they enjoyed my book. Only that sort of thing. Anyway, now that I've got that off my chest, the second book wasn't as successful, my events weren't as good, and it wasn't until the final week of events when Joy, who helped me edit the second book, said to me how I could improve things. And so I began to change these things in my events, but they still, whilst the events seemed to go a bit better, and I got more like audience participation and reader participation, it wasn't necessarily like we weren't selling. And I have to say that after one event, I've documented it in third week of Indisputably Doris or whatever, I did end up feeling quite disheartened by everything. And now I ended up cancelling 2 events because of my father's illness, and I didn't know whether he was going to be better or what was going to go on there. So I thought, well, it's best just to cancel them, and as it turns out, it was actually best at the time to have cancelled those things because there's no way that I could have got to do any of the... I just couldn't have made it to them. And it was 2. I feel extremely bad about them because I was finally getting to go further afield, and one was for someone I work with, so I did feel bad about that, but there wasn't much I could do at the time. However, I completely forgot at the time that another writer friend of mine, Margaret Holbrook, had invited me to read at her open mic night, and I'm going to be the guest speaker. And that's next week, and I've got another one in April, and I'm also going to be talking to the MS Society. I have to get in touch with 2 other people who've asked me to go and do talks. And I won't lie, I feel a bit nervous about it. I haven't experienced this feeling for a very long time, and it feels strange for it to be back, but it's almost like I kept feeling like I was having to defend myself with the second book and tell people how much I was proud of it, and I am still very proud of both my books. I'm very proud whenever I finish something and I get to share it, and I know that I have discovered some mistakes in there, which probably would have been better for another edit, but I honestly, when I brought the book out, did believe that it was finished and it was done to the best of my ability. And so to find these mistakes just... it made me feel a bit worse, really, because I was like, well, that's no good. And they're only like written things, and they're going to be changed. And like, I've already changed. If you buy any of the copies off Amazon, then, as I've seen that some people have been doing this week, and I'm extremely grateful ever since Dave showed it to you, I'm extremely grateful about that. Then some of them edits have been made, so it's only my copies that have any mistakes in, which will be worth a lot when I'm eventually big and famous, or just big. But the nerve thing, I worry that maybe I'm sharing a book that isn't that well received. I'm worried that maybe I just don't have that comedic flair anymore. I worry about what shoes I'm going to wear, which it sounds stupid, but I honestly, have you ever been up on stage and worried whether your fly was open? Because I think that happens to a lot of people. I do. It's one of the, I mean, you'd have to turn it into a joke, wouldn't you? But it just seems incredibly strange to me to actually finally be nervous about something that I've loved sharing for 6 years nearly. Yeah, nearly 6 years. And one thing I know people are going to ask is about a third Doris book, and I'm not currently telling people what I am writing, but it isn't the third Doris book. There is definitely going to be a third Doris book. I've got it planned and ready to write, but I'm not quite sure when I'm going to bring it out now. Because originally my plan was to finish Doris 2, go straight into finishing Doris 3, but that's not how my brain works. Once I need to edit something, I need to focus on that. So even though I'd finished the writing of this and the putting it all together, and that I had to do the cover, and I was really waiting for people to get back to me to help me edit the thing. And so because of that, I couldn't really focus on anything else at the time. And then because the book wasn't that well received, I got the wherewithal to work on something else that I'd wanted to work on since 2015, since I'd finished the first Doris book. And I'm not explaining what that's about. I'm not telling people what it's about, because I just don't think that that's going to help me at the moment. I have some plans in place, but I don't know, like, I hadn't planned on doing any more events. If these people hadn't asked me, like, Margaret, I understood, had actually asked me before when I was first setting up events, and I completely forgot, and that's my own fault. And these will be my first events of the new year, and they're not even my events, they're stuff that I'm doing for other people, and yet there is still this wealth of nervousness inside me that I don't know how to dissipate and get rid of. And I know that it's that whole thing of it'll be all right on the night, and the people coming there are only there to support you. I know, because I have been in the position of telling other writers all of this before now. Well, it's a strange sort of feeling to not experience before, but also to begin to call into question everything that you've done creatively. And I nearly didn't actually take the event from the MS Society, and I didn't think about calling this other person, but then I thought, well, you have to actually still go out there and try, and so I'm having to go out there and try, and I don't know. Sometimes I question whether it's just me going up against a brick wall. I question whether I'm being pig-headed about it, and really there's nothing to worry about. All that fun stuff. As you can probably tell, these are all the meanderings of my mind on a Friday morning, and I didn't know how to put them into any proper, like, sort of shape. But yeah, what do you think? Is there a way to, like, combat nerves that haven't really been there before? Am I being incredibly silly and I just have to follow my own advice? Please feel free to leave your answers in the comments. I'm not sure you're going to enjoy this video, but, you know, if you stuck with it, thank you, and until next time, that is all.